folks, welcome back to Edible Whole Foods. Today I've got my partner and editor of Edible Piedmont Magazine, Belinda Ellis, here with me today. And we're going to talk about why collards are the new kale.
We are. I heard a lecture of a man named Edward Davis, Dr. Edward Davis. He's a professor, and he has done more research about collard greens than you could ever imagine. But he talked about collards being, this being the collard belt from the Piedmont to the coast. And I guess that's what really intrigued me and got me started thinking about collard greens and how important they were to this region.
They're very important. I mean, we consume more collards per capita than any other place in the country. You grew up in Tennessee, and you didn't grow up with collards.
Turnip greens, mustard greens.
But now collards have kind of spread out. You know, you see them in restaurants in New York and Chicago and San Francisco. But there's even a collard egg roll at a barbecue joint in San Francisco. So, I mean, they really have kind of come into their own. But a lot of people think that they're long cooking things. So we're going to show sort of a quick and healthy sort of thing. Now, the stems, folks, you don't want the stems. I haven't figured out what to do with the stems. I have tried my best to make soup out of them. I've tried to do anything with them, but they just don't work. So all you need to do is just kind of grab the stem here, take your hand, and just kind of do a little wrist flick, and it goes right down the stem, just like that.
So easy.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really simple. People think that collards are difficult. Now, I'm going to take my collard green leaves and I'm going to stack them up, because if we slice them really, really thin, they'll cook really, really quick. So I'm just going to roll this up. Now, if you were French or a culinary student, you would call this method a chiffonade. And the thinner we can cut them in this roll like this, the faster they're going to cook. So we just go right down. See, there's nothing to this, is there, Belinda? This is pretty easy.
It's very easy.
So anytime you want to have collards and you want to do it quick and you don't want to get into all that ham hock stuff, then do it just like this, okay? So we've got this nice, frilly collard greens.
And that's a half a bunch right there, so that only will take you a few minutes.
Yeah, that's true. And this recipe actually takes 8 cups of shredded, so it's one bunch. Magically, for some reason, is 8 cups. All right, so we got some bacon going over here. Now, you could do this without bacon. You could do this with just olive oil if you wanted to, if you didn't want the bacon in there. We all know Fred. Fred's never going to not do bacon. We're going to throw in some garlic. Now, the thing about garlic from this recipe in particular is we do not want it to burn. So as soon as we smell it, which I'm smelling it right now, we're going to throw the collard greens in here. Now, I know this sounds kind of weird. These are Brazilian-style collards, and I first had this recipe at a little Brazilian restaurant in New York. And by little, I mean it had 6 seats in it. But you're almost stir-frying the collards. You kind of want them to be tender crisp when all things are said and done.
So you don't want to cook them to death?
No, you really don't, and you don't need to, because you've sliced them so thin like this. Now, under normal circumstances, we cook these for about 10 minutes. Now, this is you can or you don't have to. A little crushed red pepper. I found this chipotle chili crushed red pepper the other day in Whole Foods, and I just like,
and I
wow.
know that made you really happy.
It made me really happy because it gives me a little more smokiness in there. So let those go a little bit. And then we're going to throw in some lemon juice.
Now, I wouldn't think to add lemons to collards. What does that do?
Any acid is a good flavoring device versus using salt. So we'll just stir that around. And we are pretty much done. I like to serve this style collards with salmon. Take a little Latin spice, which there's a health starts here. Latin style spice, I just sprinkle it on the salmon, then grill it or pan sear it. And there's going to be some salmon on sale this Friday. So there's a perfect opportunity to do the collards, do the salmon. Try this. You will be very, very surprised. Even if you're one of those folks that does the old style collards and you braise them for 2 hours, give this a shot. You're going to be extremely surprised. Come back and see us next week on Edible Whole Foods.